Good evening, my name is Lexa Gandolfo. I'm the Executive Director of New England Events, and I want to welcome you all here tonight for this special event. Before I introduce our special guest, Jules Pieri, let me first introduce you to the executive team here at New England Events. We have George Peters, he's our founder and president, and then Chris Donovan in the back. He's our Director of Business Development, and we recently brought on Steve Davis as our COO. He is not able to be here this evening, but hope to introduce you all to him very soon. I'd also like to thank Stephanie Gaia and the UMass Innovation Hub for partnering with us to host this event. Thank you to our funding partners, Morse Law, Enterprise Bank, M&R Technologies. Both Chris Brown and Chris Wolf are here tonight, so thank you very much for your financial support of New England Events. And just to take a step back, New England Events, our mission is the following. We want to empower inventors and creators of all backgrounds to navigate the complex journey of innovation from product concept to commercialization, turn their ideas into reality. We offer mentorship, community, education, resources to makers and independent inventors throughout their journeys to commercialize their products. Let's take a second and show you. If you'd like to become a member, go to our website, www.neevents.org, become a member. If you're interested in sponsoring us, please talk to Chris in the back about partnerships. We'd love to have you as a member, as a funding partner. We'd like to bring you into the community. Our next event, before I get to introducing Jules, is a veteran pitch competition on December 6th. We're going to be inviting military veterans and their spouses to pitch products to a panel of experts. It'll be a competition that we'll have a prize for. So mark your calendars, more information to follow. It'll be here at the IO. Okay, so on to introducing Jules. I'm honored to introduce our special guest, Jules Pieri. She's a dynamic entrepreneur, innovator, and author who has made significant contributions to the world of product design, entrepreneurship, investing, and leadership. She's a prominent figure in the startup and design community here in Boston, nationally and internationally. One of Jules's most notable accomplishments was her co-founding in 2008 of the Grommet, an online marketplace and product launch platform dedicated to showcasing innovative and unique consumer products. Under her leadership as CEO, the Grommet helped over 3,000 makers and entrepreneurs gain exposure and access to a broader audience. This isn't in my notes, but I also want to note that in reading her book, rereading it again this week, I learned that not only did Jules and her partner help these 3,000 makers to market, but all the ones that didn't make it onto the Grommet, they then called and consulted and gave personal advice to about how they could get their products to market. So that's pretty remarkable in my mind. Not only did the Grommet deliver exposure to these thousands of small businesses, but it also encouraged us all to look beyond mass-produced items, to value craftsmanship and innovation in its purest form. Finally, Jules and her partnership and her business partner were pioneers in prioritizing social equality. They were doing this way back when, before it was in vogue. They gave special attention to product submissions from women, older individuals, people of color, veterans, and other underrepresented entrepreneurs. So thank you for that. These days, the term innovative is often liberally used to categorize a wide range of things in the consumer product industry. However, Jules Pieri's career embodies true innovation in every sense. She has truly walked the walk. From her pioneering work in product design and business development at Rite and Hasbro, to her work on groundbreaking products such as the Reebok pump, to her founding of the Grommet, to her role now as investment partner at XFactor Ventures. Jules' journey reflects a consistent commitment to genuine innovation throughout her entire career. In a world that's constantly changing, Jules Pieri's story reminds us that innovation is not just a buzzword. Innovation is about empowering other individuals to turn their ideas into reality. Jules has proven that with hard work and belief in the power of ideas, we can make a difference one invention at a time. Welcome, Jules. We're so happy to have you.
I was having so many thoughts during that beautiful, incredible introduction. It's really special, honestly.
Thank you. Thank you for
He's
being
like,
here.
I know, I'm supposed to let you ask questions.
No, please.
When we started Grommet, we didn't know what to call the small businesses. And one of the first things you said was makers. And believe it or not, we sit around and say, like, are these small businesses, are these manufacturers, are these brands, are they clients? And I didn't like any of those words. And then I just started to see makers rise and other people where it really invented. And we grabbed it and it felt very awkward. Like it wasn't a normal thing to say because it sounded like craftspeople. And maker to us meant obvious to a manufacturer. It didn't necessarily mean craft. And wait, basically, for the world to decide that that was okay too. And you just said it in a like totally normal way. You were saying it in a totally normal way. It makes me really happy.
Thank you. I was trying to take credit for writing that, but I can't now. Thank you very much, Lexa. And Chris Donovan, thank you very much. And Stephanie from UMass, thank you all for helping us put on this evening tonight. Well, nice way to start. Nice way to start. We're going to get right into it, so I know people have been waiting. I hope everybody enjoyed the food. I did pick that up, so it was good. So right off the bat, we're going to get into it. As a side note, Jules and I really didn't know each other. When she first started at Grommet, I drove down to where she had first started. I put my mosquito net on the back door with a note where her place was, and with a note on it. I think somebody stole it. She never got to see it early on with the Grommet. But we've been friends for a long time, and I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was terrific because we were in a converted Victorian house in Lexington Center, ultimately moved to Somerville in a kind of bricks and beam kind of space you'd expect. But anybody who showed up with the product wasn't that common. I would have thought would be more common. It would surprise me because I was often there alone at night. And there'd be a knock on the door, so not that often, thank God, because I would have been scared.
Yeah. I went during the day.
You went during the day. The night ones were scary, and I had no idea who was there, but that was special that you did that. It was really special.
Well, there's a lot of people here that have gone through the inventor journey and things like that. To have you here tonight to be able to do this in this space that we now are very fortunate to be part of UMass and the Havel campus here. Okay, here we go. What was your motivation for getting into product design and entrepreneurship in general? What did you find surprising, and how did it affect your personal life positively or negatively?
Like 5 questions in that question.
I know.
So
Let's do
I'll
that.
forget the second and third one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Still next to the first. Okay, so getting into product design. Up in that picture, I was just telling George, my earrings are the color of my alma mater, University of Michigan. So somebody said go blue. Thank you. And I entered college like a lot of people without a particular direction, and I had done a lot of art in high school, and I decided to put myself on an art diet, so I didn't do any art. I did all academic courses the first year, and then I got itchy, and I signed up for a sculpture course at the art and design building on a big campus, lots of facilities. And I was walking down the hall during the time I was taking that class, and I saw one of those eye-level sort of in-bed cases on the wall, and it had all these models of small hand tools like drills and screwdrivers, electric screwdrivers, and they were beautifully handmade. They looked like they were really produced, manufactured. And I just stopped in my tracks and said, who gets to do that? Like industrial design is what I was looking at, the industrial design students' work. And so I figured that out because I don't think I've had many lightning bolts in my life. That was one. That was one where I said, I could imagine that this collision of business and creativity and frankly, art as well, products are art, was something I would enjoy. So that's how I started product design, and I did it for a few years. I started in 2 computer companies, and then I had another lightning bolt one day that was to go, you didn't ask this, but I ended up getting an MBA, and that's very unusual at the time. It's not unusual now, but at the time I was the first designer to get an MBA at the school I went to, and I did it because I was sitting in a meeting, and I was the junior person. We were developing the very first portable computer in the world. That sounds crazy now. Just like the Reebok pump, I bet some people don't know even what that is. You know, it was like really important in my career 100 years ago. But imagine there weren't portable computers, and my more senior colleagues, you know, I was a baby, were designing the computer. I was designing the packaging, so I wasn't really speaking. I was just listening. And these very talented designers were explaining their decisions. One of the decisions that needed to get made was the color of the computer, and our department reported to engineering, to a man named Herb Schanzer. And Herb was starting to weigh in on the color decision, which seemed very inappropriate, but he was in charge. And finally, he kind of like decided that this computer that was supposed to be an office product, mostly, would be army green. He had a brush cut. He was ex-army. His suit was army green. Like, he hadn't changed yet, the uniform. And I just sat there and said, if Ilhan and Art, my colleagues, can't make that decision, we got an industrial design meets business problem, right? That he's not valuing their business contributions. I decided to apply to business school right then. But my career always stayed close to design. I've always fostered other people's creativity, less so holding the pencil myself, if you will. And I actually enjoy the other side of seeing what other people can do and helping them articulate it, gain success. And at one point in my career, I worked at Playskool. I think that was mentioned, Hasbro. And I followed a woman in my career early on. My career's been industrial design, entrepreneurship, and some big companies, some consumer and computer, as it used to be called, companies. And I had this streak of 3 companies where I worked directly for Nate Whitman, who ultimately ran eBay, ran Hewlett-Packard, ran for governor of California. She's ambassador to Kenya now. Crazy, right? And she just landed on my head as my boss. She wasn't famous yet. And I always knew when the creative people came, whether it was an ad agency or product designers, that when we scared Meg, we were getting somewhere. Like, I needed to scare her. She was like my litmus test for the rest of the organization. And I talk her off the ceiling, you know, that this is going to be okay, because everything gets watered down. But I don't know how I got to that, but I enjoyed that process of helping creative people get through, but making it safe to take the bold choice.
I want to go back to the lightning bolt. When you said you had 3 different parts of your drink.
Yeah.
Did you have lightning bolts at each one of those going through?
Well, that relates to the startup question, right?
Yeah, right.
So, out of business school, I did join a startup. That was not a lightning bolt, it was just instinctive. I was the only person in my class who did that. It was very unusual. People felt sorry for me. I couldn't get a real job. I'm sure. I'm sure they did. You know, it was not done. But that was just instinct. And it was actually an industrial design and engineering consultancy. I just loved my original profession. I wasn't looking to shed it. I wanted to stay close to that world. I didn't think I even had enough cred in it yet. I wanted deeper cred. That's when I worked on the Reebok pump, more as the business person than the designer. And then starting the Grommet, which was part of your earlier question, was, so I worked for a couple startups, and I was looking to join another one at this stage, just before I started Grommet. No intention of starting a business. So I had joined startups. It's very different, as you know. Many of you have started your own businesses. When you're the person signing the paychecks or making sure the lights stay on, it's very different than joining and helping. And I had no intention of being that person, but I have had this experience, particularly working for Meg at Playskool, that became the germ for Grommet. What I had seen earlier in my career was that our product line shrunk a ton at Playskool, and I wasn't there very long, and I saw it basically go to half. And we had beautiful resources for creating wonderful toys for young children. There was no creation problem. So I went to Meg one day because I was so new to the toy industry. I said, what's going on here? And she said, oh, well, there are 4 problems why our product line is shrinking. Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, Walmart were her answers. And other than Toys R Us, nobody was really that seriously in the toy business. So they were our big customers, and they were really squeezing out the independent toy retailers, the mom and pops, who always are the people who take chances on new products. Walmart just wanted last year's line with a twist or a better margin. They didn't want to take risks. And that stuck right here. I just thought it was sort of the way of the world and inevitable. But then, fast forward a lot of years, I was president of a social network. And I became somewhat of a pioneer in that field of knowing how to reach an audience in a fresh way. I could see this media mattered. That's why I had taken that job as president of the social network. I had no credibility for that job, but I got it and enjoyed it a lot. We competed with LinkedIn in that business. You never heard of my business, but I learned a lot in that phase. And I was sitting, so I've left that business, thinking I'm going to join another startup, sitting in a venture capitalist office, thinking that I'm going to be networking for a job. And we were left, I was left waiting in the lobby a long time with an entrepreneur who was waiting to pitch. So we had a lot of time. And I just mentioned this problem of like, the way products get brought to market is broken. And because technologies are going 3D printing and the internet, and I knew social media, I knew that a lot of forces would collide to create a whole bunch of new products that were possibly better than any before. But they're going to hit this market, this Hasbro and Mark problem, this Walmart, Kmart problem, where consolidated larger retailers weren't ready for this beautiful explosion. And I said that needs to be addressed because we're all going to miss those products, and we're all going to miss those opportunities for those businesses. And this entrepreneur who had never seen sense said, you should do that. And so I remember this a little bit, the very origin of Grommet.
I hope he sees this later on on TV.
That'd be
when I say
great.
that, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. He was very meaningful to me. And I'm usually an okay on the confidence scale person, but I had not been in his shoes. And he looked credible to me. I mean, I don't know if he was or wasn't, but he just looked buttoned up to me. Like that little thing meant a lot to me. So I remember I had to get on a plane that night to go visit my son at college. And I wrote this pro-con list of starting a business, just generically, not this business. Would I think about doing that? It was kind of balanced. And then I was reading on the way back home to Boston. They had an alumni magazine that had an entrepreneurial focus. And all the alums who were interviewed about their business basically admitted how ill-prepared they were for starting what they were doing. They didn't know what they were getting into. And I thought, I'm actually pretty prepared. So, okay, I'll check that tiny box. The next day, I drew a picture of business. Remember, I'm a designer. So what I was drawing was really bubbles of technological and societal influences, cultural influences that would enable a new online way to build a community around discovering new products. That's kind of how I thought about it. Like, I don't know if I called it a product launch platform, but it was things like, it was obviously the internet, it was the technologies that would enable the products. But it's also like, it was 2007 and we were having a lot of distrust of large institutions, wars, banks, things that were maybe things that were concerning us. And I thought if you didn't have to rely on a big company but a community, that might be interesting. So I drew that picture. The next day I did a very, ham-fisted financial model. All I wanted to solve for was, I knew these products would come from very undercapitalized companies who would not be able to make long production runs for an early stage of their business. And I knew from Keds, the smallest production run we ever did was 3,000 shoes. So it was kind of a number in my head, like that's a small production run for shoes. And I solved for it. Well, for launching, I had the idea to launch one product a day, make it a media event, create a video for it, really blanket sort of the community and social media with this. But they don't have the capital or the resources or history to sell a ton. Will I be out of business because we're going to sell out too quickly if they have small production runs? And I remember I saw I wanted 100 million in revenue on our side. Not immediately, but eventually. And I remember solving for 1,000 units. It seemed like, okay, we'd be viable if the average company could do 1,000 units. And then I went to a craft fair at MIT, because I still didn't know 1,000 was a good number. And I found the most medieval product I could find being sold. It was this double-dipped kind of burnout scarf that this woman in her basement like dipped in vats, and they took hours to make, like, because they had to wait and double dip again. And I asked her name was Brooke Stanton, and I said, Brooke, like, if I were gonna really kill you with an order, like, what would be the scariest size, quantity? I give you warning, but what's a really big number? And she said 600. I was like, oh, I'm in business. If Brooke can do 600 scarves, people who manufacture can do 1,000, even undercapitalized, I figured, with some warning.
Right. I love that lightning. The question is now, I think we went through a lot of the questions already with that. So I want to ask one in particular here. Can you share an example from your experience where innovative product design has led to a significant increase in customer satisfaction or market share?
I think that happens often when you reinvent. I mean, I'm a group of mostly inventors, I assume, and when you really rethink a category or the way something's done. And a product that we tracked better, it's not better than other products, but one that we tracked well was one called Bondic. Has anyone heard of it? It's an adhesive, and it was inspired by a dentist. So have you ever had UV light when something's done in your mouth and they use a UV light to cure the cap or whatever they're doing? A patient was sitting there, if I'm remembering this correctly, and ultimately partnered with the dentist because he asked, like, what are you doing? It's got to be really hard. He told me I could eat it immediately. What is this? I essentially commercialized that technology into a home product in a little tube with a little tiny UV light. And it's a miraculous product. But nobody was expecting that. Nobody that walks into Ace Hardware or Home Depot or looks on Amazon for something they've never heard of. So they had to really create a category. It works so well. It really does deliver. But they had to create a category for people looking for, forgetting the search term that they ended up owning. But we would track the search term, like basically whatever that term was to find this product. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Was nothing. Well, nobody's looking for this thing at all. And as we helped to develop a market for it at Grommet, we really did have a role here of educating. This is a product that required, I just set up, a whole lot of words to make you try to be interested in this product. We had a video that didn't have that same role. But by virtue of our having put that out there and having an engaged and large audience at that point, we probably had 1 or 2 million people on email list at that point. Huge social following. But on Google, searches for that category, nobody remembers a brand name, hardly ever, but they remember, I remember that liquid, whatever. And they started searching for the terms that were really relevant to the product. UV cured, glue and things like that. And we watched Google searches go from nothing to like massive through not just our efforts, but the company was ready for success. They were a good team, but it was so powerful to see that happen.
The part of what, how'd you come up with one product a day, and how many did you look at? How much did your team look at to get that one product? And then you did 6 days a week. was that?
Five
5 days a week?
Yeah.
So how many products went through the Grommet before you picked that one and the next
Yeah, a
one?
lot. So we did scouting. So I'm saying did because I'm no longer with the company. That wasn't clear. And we did scouting so that we were out there, out and about, and finding things through press, trade shows, even at retail. We were looking as well. But if you combine what we were looking for or finding, submissions is probably 200 products a week, and you're going to get down to 5. Now, 200 just is the top of the funnel. It's not as daunting as that sounds, because as we started to gain more footprint, we would have a lot of submissions that were very imitative, Chinese, frankly, mostly knockoff products. They're easy to screen. You know, they're not little tiny single-use gadgets or imitative products that didn't require engagement, frankly. They weren't. You can tell when a company comes in if the person who created the company behind it is authentic, I guess. You develop it. You develop an instinct for that. So I would say 20 to 30, though, required real scrutiny. And we would ask for samples. We would engage a company. So it was an online submission, and we would engage with 20 or 30 of them. And then it would boil down to 5. And sometimes it was a, let's wait for later. I'll give you an example of wait for later. Great product, but the form factor wasn't ready. An adhesive, for some reason, category tonight. Subaru, anyone know that? It's an air dry silicone putty. Like, I just used it the other day because my vacuum parts just sort of flexed off. So it looks like Play-Doh, and it air dries to a really solid form. And when the entrepreneur, she's Irish, she was living in London, she's a chemist, had no idea of business, and even wasn't that interested in home, like how people in their homes use things. She was into the chemistry. And she presented us with a 2-pound brick as the way she wanted to sell it. Now, it's air dry within 24 hours. And you need a pea-sized amount, usually, you know, maybe 2 peas. And she wanted to sell it in 2-pound bricks. We had to wait, you know, we advised her, this is probably not a good form factor, you know, but it was a really product, we just had to wait. So some of the 20 to 30 would come along later. But sometimes it was, we were looking for the values that Lexa mentioned in the beginning. We wanted companies that it wasn't always about who the entrepreneur was. It could be made in the USA, it could be it had a lifetime guarantee, it could be it had a sustainability component. But we were looking for products that had something, one of our values that we call them represented. We were looking for products that really did something uniquely, you know, that they were breakthrough, that they did something that sometimes it was the aesthetics, but usually it was a function. We did a lot of functional, tool-leaning, useful leaning products. So we were looking for something that really did work. We were testing everything. Frankly, were margin and pricing conversations. They weren't always, you know, aligned yet. It's so hard to make any money on your early units, and sometimes people under or overprice their products, and we would have to have a conversation. Your business will not survive at this price if we're going to launch it. You know, we're hurting you. Let's wait till you're ready for the price that we think, you know, makes sense. Or it could be lower because they were trying to make money on the very first units, you know, excessively more than is reasonable at that quantity. So there were those conversations. Also, whether the company would engage with our community, because we embedded the idea of video and e-commerce, not video or e-commerce, just putting them together. But not every inventor wanted to support that. They had to be, you know, on video, we provide materials to us. They didn't always want that. They had to support a conversation with our community. And I think we didn't keep this up forever. You probably had to do this, George. Did you have to keep a live conversation? Like you launched it, you had to answer all the questions from our community.
Yes.
And you had to be at your desk and wait, you know.
Right.
Like, well, not everybody wants to do that either.
Right.
You know, ultimately, these are made a little more streamlined of that. So those are things we're looking at.
early on, how did you interview people that you knew were gonna have to look at products? That's not something that you really go to school for. You have
Yeah.
to train a lot of, everyone that worked for you, that
Yeah.
this is how we're gonna do that. This is what to look for.
Yeah.
'Cause I know when we came to Kettle Pizza, I forget the gentleman, he was driving by our building and saw a sign up and said, it's Kettle Pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then they contacted us and I said, oh, Grom. I said, oh, Grom.
I've been to the Grommet.
But how did you, when people come for a job,
Yeah.
how did you screen them out? Because if they're gonna screen products and know what to look for, how did you do that? Did you have to do all that yourself? You and, your co-founder and things like that to do that? Because that's not easy to do.
It's
What to
not.
look for.
I think a shortcut might have been to hire people who were former buyers or retailers. And we did once or twice and they worked out just fine. They were great people. But generally, so my co-founder, Joanne Domeniconi, had been head of product development at Keds. So she had been around the block in developing a consumer product and lots of them at Keds. It's a high pressure role. And I've worked with her there. So that was how the partnership formed. And we'd also shared a nanny. We both have 3 sons. So I knew her character. I knew her work ethic. I knew how she treated people, but I also knew her sons, which oddly enough, they're lovely and still are lovely adults. That mattered to me too, just to kind of know the whole person. So when I invited her to join me on this journey. But a lot of it was training at kind of her side at the beginning. It's a lot about how you talk to other companies to get the information you need, but how you treat them, right? Because this is often a person's life, blood, hope, dream, or it's not, and then you gotta have an intel for that too, that they're not committed, too. So it was a lot of observing how she handled those in the early days, her training from her. We would have people come to us in the interview process with basically a deck pitching some products to us. We may or may not have ever seen them, didn't matter if we'd seen them, but did they have an eye? There is an instinct required for understanding what is, innovative and a breakthrough and what is not, and what's current to our community, what do people care about today, because that changes a lot. So they could, say they represent 8 products and 4 of them had something, kind of an XFactor, that would be a great interview for that person.
Plus, all the employees at the Grommet came like scouts too. They were they were always looking.
You could always pitch, anybody in the company could pitch a product.
Right. So, and I think that certainly helps with the growth, because now they have all of these people looking out,
Yeah.
and then they have a system. Okay, we know what we're looking for.
Right.
We know what fits in the funnel.
Yeah.
And now we have to work out the details.
Right.
Katrina.
I was wondering if it was Katrina. Was that who
It
it
was
was?
Katrina that was here the last.
Yeah.
The last meeting that was here before COVID, Katrina came up and worked for Jules and did an absolutely wonderful presentation. And it was at your, when I went down to see you, you said that you wanted her to come out and get the experience of speaking in public. And, she needed to do that. And I thought that was excellent of you that you would. Instead of you coming yourself, she said, no, I need her to come out here. I want her to get some experience in doing this. And she was fabulous. And we took a picture in front of the sign over here. It was the last meeting before COVID. And the next week they closed the building after that. So that's where I just remembered her name from talking about it. But it was like she had done it her whole life. She was very smooth.
She was ready. But that's one of the best things. Some of you are building businesses, I know that. That's one of the best things is developing people, right? And she was more than ready, but she proved it. I knew she was ready. She probably didn't know she was ready. And you got it. That if you don't enjoy that, it's hard to build a healthy company. You've got to enjoy that side too.
One of the things that I was very fortunate to be part of is when Jules had launched her book, I was invited down with 2 other people that had products on the Grommet. And I saw an interview from WBUR, similar to, and we were talking about it. The gentleman who was doing the interview went on to fame with the war. I don't think I'll be going anywhere after this interview. But I can tell you from what we learned from being on the Grommet also is that they spent a whole day with us. They got to know us. They filmed Al and I in our environment, so we were comfortable. It was one of the best videos that we had for Kettle Pizza in our 10-year run. It was the video for the Grommet because they took the time to let us tell our story and then crafted our story for their audience. So for yourselves about that, it's the video was very powerful to do, and it was a great help to us because we sold in a lot of different places. And to be able to have the story told about Al and I, how we came up with Kettle Pizza, that was very important to people who went on to buy it because you attach some emotion to the product also to it.
You guys are great in that video though, like to be just, you were like you are now. You were authentic and passionate and talked about your domestic manufacturer and things that mattered, you know, to people. And generally, when someone was shy about the video, it was because they wouldn't be, you know, slick or professional enough, and we didn't want that. We wanted George to be George, right? And usually that worked out.
Yeah. When we have our groups and people hesitate sometimes, they know their product best.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes articulating that is difficult. Would you encourage someone to, if it's not them that can do that, to get somebody who can be a little bit more articulate?
If they're truly, you know, kind of uncomfortable, like I remember in the early days, we used to have people who could come to our office and like stand next to one of us and just talk about the product, kind of like this. The makers would come, and I remember one man, and I just felt 2 men actually. I feel really terrible. We ever asked him to it. One came. I'm not going to tell you this, he came with makeup on. I didn't wear makeup, like, and he had makeup on, and he was so nervous. He was sweating like crazy, and I thought, this is cruel and unusual punishment. Like, surely we could have done this without him, you know. And the other man was just super shy. Turned out to be a blockbuster product that sold at General Mills and knew what he was doing. He just didn't need to be on video, just wasn't for him. So if it's not for you, sure, someone else is fine. And there's someone who can convey the passion and be as clear as you would be about the product.
Like just to remind everybody, we're going to save the questions right till the end. We're going to have a Q&A right when we get done, so Jules will be able to answer a few questions before she has to leave. So I know you all have a lot of questions out there. I can tell, I can feel it out there.
Feel it.
They can feel it out there. They're all sitting on the edge of their seats going up there. One other question, you've had a successful career as an entrepreneur and innovator. Could you share a personal anecdote or experience with a maker or inventor that had a profound influence on you?
I would say one day I came in Joanne's office and I saw, she said, you're going to love this. She's talking about a product. I look on her desk, and it's 2 pair of plain white socks. And I'm thinking, this one has lost her mind today. Like, she's desperate. Did nothing come in the last month? And they literally look like nothing. And then she told me the story about this woman, Gina, who'd grown up in the sock business, her family sock business. And apparently in the 90s, most of our sock production was outsourced, offshore. And she was committed to creating domestically grown cotton socks in the US. It's a big deal. That's a very hard thing to do. Very hard to retool the machines for cotton when you're doing something in polyester or whatever. And she was this very determined person to make this happen. So this was her first run. And she hadn't done anything fancy yet. And it went from like, are you kidding me, to like, that's a Grommet. Like, if we tell this story, people will want these socks because because they want to support Gina in Fort Payne, Alabama. And she went on to do lots of other things. It's called Zakana Socks, and it's still an existing business. Lots of other kinds of socks too, but those plain ones were great, really, and well priced. Like they weren't crazy expensive. They a little bit more than the Gap. So how could you not love this? It was great.
Super. I'm gonna skip over a little bit. What is the most important thing we as a society can do to encourage innovation in how we make things?
I think there's so many different ways of thinking about this, but one of the things I think about is there's a heck of a lot in our family budget or household budget that's fixed, and you can't change paying rent. But there's a section that's discretionary income and open for opportunity. So you probably can't take that budget and direct it towards small businesses always. It's pretty hard to buy a car from a small business. I wouldn't do it. But you can support an awful lot of small businesses in lots of categories. So I was thinking taking 10% of your budget that goes to sort of buying things and trying to support the innovation you want to see, whether it's the type of entrepreneur you want to see, like was mentioned earlier, or the environmental impact you care about, or your own sustainability in terms of lifetime guarantees for products. But if you just think sort of thoughtfully about the ones where you can make a choice, I think that's a hugely powerful thing to do. This room doesn't need to be told that, I'm pretty sure. You probably have an antennae for those kind of products, but definitely when I speak to college students and people who are just sort of forming their values and behaviors, I like to get them to think that there's a little bit of a power, there's a lot of power to that. This is probably, I can't tell if this is more or less controversial than it used to be, because I've been saying it forever, I try to avoid Amazon. And that's, the FTC came up with an anti-monopoly suit yesterday against Amazon. I was living through our makers at the coalface of what Amazon did to innovation. And what I saw was a company that had no scruples around allowing counterfeits and copycats. And I saw so many people create a beautiful product only to find a competitive listing with their own likeness on it, their own photo or their own trade dress branding at a cheaper price, same exact product. Not the same product, sorry. Looks like the same product, been knocked off, price reduced because it's not the same product, it's a cheaper product. Person orders it thinking they're getting the real thing, and they get a fake, and it fails, and it starts to destroy a real company. And I think Amazon has taken some steps actually that are for verifying products, but they were not caring at all when I was seeing that happening over and over. And I just learned as a consumer not to buy anything there that would go on my body or in my mouth or on a pet or in a car. Or I just didn't trust the validity of the products and if there was a health or safety component. And frankly, I just didn't even buy on Amazon at all for many years, as much as I could. It's gotten so hard to avoid it. I had 2 Amazon packages in my home today. It used to be 2 a year, and now it's like sometimes 2 a day because I cannot get. I went to my Subaru. Here's an example. I was out of Subaru. Subaru doesn't sell directly. I would have gone directly to them, my preference. So I went to Home Depot and Ace Hardware and all the other sources I thought I might find it. And they carried very little. I know the product well. I know what I want. They carried none of the colors I wanted. Only Amazon had it. That's what was delivered today. But I really, really worry about a company that's 38% of our online sales and really, really doesn't care about small businesses. All the ads notwithstanding, they've done a beautiful PR job on that front. But I saw the reality and it scared me. It scared me as a citizen. I mean, it wasn't about Grommet at all. We had our own fine corner. But it scared me as a citizen to allow a monopoly to do what it has done. Prices have risen on Amazon. And the argument that everything's cheaper and better and faster is faster. Love their reliability. Everybody does. They're amazing. And I think Jeff Bezos is the smartest business person probably ever born. I think the guy is incredible. It's not personal. It has so much admiration for his skill set. And his team he's building is doing it now. But when it comes to innovation, I think net destroyer, not net creator.
Since we have mostly a room of inventors here, don't run right down the room right now. The independent inventor that I think they'll always be there.
I think there'll always be a place for independent inventors, and thanks to Jules and founding the Grommet, Joanne. I know what it did for our business to give us an opportunity, but we had to create the product. We had to nurture it along before somebody found it, and for us to get it out there too. So when you're working on something, keep at it. Find someone that can help you with that, and sometimes the journey's not going to be for you. I want to lead you into this, Jules, is that somebody's going to make the product. Somebody's going to do it. So, get the help that you need. Seek out some, like our group. Definitely read Jules' book. I want to make sure everybody understands that. It did wonders for us. I want to have you touch on something again here. If I don't make sure that I read all of Lex's questions, I'll get talked to afterwards. I'm going to talk, very good. It's highlighted, so I better read them all. Let me see it. Sustainability.
I put it in big font for you.
I know you did. Thank you for that. I appreciate
That's an
that.
ageist comment.
Thank you. Sustainability is a prominent theme in today's product design and manufacturing. How do you see it shift towards sustainability shaping the future of how we make things?
Well, when we started Grommet, this is a long time ago, 2008, Lexi, you mentioned all the values and you mentioned this profile entrepreneurs, but we had others like sustainability. And we were just guessing what people would care about. We were just ordinary people trying to navigate this. And I will admit, in the beginning, this is again ages ago, it wasn't, we were like hoping people would care more than they really did. And quite often sustainable products back then that were either, if they were remanufacturing something in a new way, were often more expensive. Sometimes it was meant domestic production. And people weren't willing to spend the delta between the existing solution and what we were offering. Over time, we saw that change, and it was often because people came up with a sustainable solution. It wasn't just remanufacturing, but a new way of doing something where it really did reduce materials or created something that could be lasting as opposed to disposable. So they were taking sustainability up another level, and I think that's the expectation now that there were two lenses that changed over the course of time. That one, and people now hear more about domestic manufacture than they did when we started. Same sort of story, that it might have been a little more expensive. But when we started, we would always ask you, where do you produce? Do you have any plans to produce in the US? If they were American, if it was a Canadian company, do you produce in your country or not, or wherever. But we just wanted to know kind of how they thought about that. And in the beginning, the American companies would just say whatever it was. As time went on, if they didn't have a domestic manufacturing plan, they were defensive about it and were talking about how they were working on it, like they knew it kind of mattered to a large segment of people. And some of that is for just quality control and production, but some is economic and patriotism and stuff like that. So I think those two dimensions were the biggest shifts I saw people did start to care about who the entrepreneurs were, but that was sort of natural, like human connection. You know, that was going to happen no matter what. But the other two really snowballed a lot more. And they were somewhat divisive. I would say that, especially domestic manufacturing, there were a lot of people who get on our discussion board and like complain if something was made in China, which plenty of products were. And they would tell me, you know, I'm done with you, Grommet, and I'm never buying anything again. And I'd go look sometimes at their buying history. That was always where she never had bought anything, you know. So you have to take it, you know, you look at what really happens, how people say sometimes.
For certainly our audience out here, when they're thinking about creating a product, when they're thinking about creating a product and they want to stick to making it in the U.S., and they say, well, it's hard to find manufacturers that will do that here in the United States, that can do it at a cost that I'll be able to make some money.
Right.
Do you think that that's going to get better in the future as more things come onshore? I think that the manufacturing here will understand that they have to do something to be able to accommodate some of the products that people want to make here.
Yeah.
And it happened a lot. We all know before what happened during COVID, when the supply chain really got broken and we couldn't get things, and we were at the mercy of, China and others for our products. And then companies really kind of turned it up there. So, advice for someone who wants to see about making something here, stick to it or go for the cost and try to get it. There's challenges both ways.
There is. I was feeling somewhat hopeless before COVID on that topic. I was not seeing, I've seen us losing that capability, the U.S. not gaining it in the manufacturing sector. From what, it's more secondhand, I was watching our makers who were sincerely trying to find domestic manufacturing, and some capabilities have been completely offshore. And then I think COVID has given me a lot of hope. I mean, it's truly different, where the full risks and costs are more apparent now to people, or imaginable. It wasn't imaginable, before. I would say, as a first port of call, try. There are times you just can't. There are just better capabilities offshore for certain things you need to do. It's not always about cost. It's often about quality. There are things you cannot make here as well as you can make other places, and that's just life. I can't change that. If you want a great product, you have to make it where it should be made. But I would always try first here for mitigating risk. There is a market for it, and some of us just need an American saying that. And I would say that for France, try to make it in France, if I were French. But I see hope now that I did before. There's a pretty cool business called Rebuild Manufacturing. Do you guys talk about that business at all?
What is it called?
Rebuild Manufacturing. It's
Anybody?
it's in like Westboro or Southboro, Massachusetts. But this is the commitment of the business, and they have Chris that I met at the beginning of the coming in here. I wondered if he knew it because something he said about his business reminded me of one of their divisions. They're buying up pretty technologically led manufacturing businesses in the U.S. to try to give kind of a fuller picture. It would be more electronics and materials-driven products, high-tech materials-driven products. It wouldn't be soft goods. It wouldn't be a lot of categories, but I like that this is somebody at a very high level with good capital trying to create a platform for people like you who might want to manufacture something. And one of their divisions is even from, like Chris had said, from concept to production. I think Chris said that.
Concept to completion. Yeah.
Completion. They have a division that does that in certain veins, and I don't know your vein, but Rebuild Manufacturing. That could be a solution for a lot of people in the room, but just like somebody's putting time, effort, smart people, capital into this. I come from Detroit. My dad was an automobile. I'm going to care a lot about this. Like, they're on strike right now. When they were on strike, my life was really affected. Like, this is not an academic topic for me. This was a real life topic for me.
tell us what you do now. What's the next lightning bolt that you look for? What's XFactor? What do you look for now with what you do now? And I want you to share with everybody what you do, because you're on to new things now. So
Yeah, it's a mix of investing in more give-back community things. And they don't all go together, so it's going to be a little confusing for sure. But I'm a partner in a fund called XFactor Ventures. And we are usually the first non-friends and family capital into a company. And all of the partners are female founders. And we invest in gender diverse founding teams, sector agnostic. Tends to be technology, software companies. Sorry, is it hard to hear me? Is the mic not on? I'm seeing you.
It's hard
on?
to hear, but this works
It's
great.
on? Okay, good. So that's a part of my job. Everybody's a founder and most are still running their companies. I started doing this investing when I was at Grommet. So it's not a full-time gig is basically what I'm saying, because everybody else is running a company and we invest on the side, basically. And then,
what do you look for?
Oh, sorry.
Let's
I'm
start.
investing in marketplaces and some medical technology companies primarily. So the outcome is, if you're investing at the early stage we are with incredible risk and high likelihood of failure, you have to be able to see a $1 billion valuation potential from every company we invest in. That's really hard for product companies to display. It's pretty much impossible. I mean, it's the hardest, one of the hardest things about a product company is financing. Crowdfunding was a wonderful addition to the ecosystem. It doesn't solve all problems. It's a contributor, a helpful factor. So that's one thing I'm doing. I'm consulting to the city of Cambridge. This is what's going to sound really weird, but I'm a small team of people. They just created a community safety department. So basically post George Floyd, when defund the police became a rallying cry, what people really meant wasn't like defund the police. They meant, can we have alternative sources to be first responders for mental health or addiction or youth, crises that aren't public safety issues, individual. And Cambridge is pioneering that, but they're looking for a bit of help in consulting. It's a startup, how to structure that. So I'm starting to spend a little bit of just starting that project. My earrings, I'm just joined the President's Council to advise the President of the University of Michigan. One of my really big focus, passion areas is economic equality. And we did a lot of that in Grommet and caring about that and supporting people. But I realized that the industry I'm in, venture capital, is part of the larger finance industry, is one of the worst offenders in economic equality in terms of there's $71 trillion of assets managed in the U.S. and it's pretty much managed by a very homogeneous population of white men. And the University of Michigan has a very diverse alumni population, and our own endowment, which the alums all created, it's the third largest public endowment in the country, is not managed by people who look like our alums. And I've been rattling the cage for a really long time, and I finally have the seat. Try to make that happen. So I do things that don't make sense for my background, but they do have a thread, for me. There's an internal consistency for me. And I'm on the Boston Design Vision Committee, so Boston's planning department is possibly going away, but needs to be replaced, and there's an effort to set course for Boston on making things unique about with urban planning. So I'm more of a community advisory or assistant advisory board and not central to this effort, nor should I be. I don't have any other qualifications, but I have done a lot of work in the community, and so I'm trying to bring what I know from them.
I'd be willing to bet on you that you're gonna make a difference with all of those things that I would put. I really think that Jules will make it happen, just like anything else. I wanna go back to one thing about the, just love that lightning bolt. So, do you expect going forward, do you still look at something, or do you go places and you see something that you say, well, I wish somebody would make something and fix that? Or that lightning bolt, or do you get that lightning bolt and say, oh, I can see this now, this should hold water? Do you still look at things that way? That doesn't go away.
But I'm still you're my people, and that I understand what you do and why it matters. But I actually take myself down a step from what you're doing, because I haven't done it. I've helped people do it, and I still kind of prefer that role to being the person. I don't know, I feel, back to that example of Herb Schanzer with the green computer, I just realized like that bridge person is important, right? To translate these ideas to a business or to reality. And I don't have that huge itch to be the person, I have the huge itch to help the person. And Grommet still exists, by the way. It was spun out of the company that acquired us. So there's a platform to submit to. It's kind of being retooled in an interesting way, and they launch 20 new products every Thursday. So there is a platform still to be had. And I'm not involved, so I really don't have, like direct knowledge of how it's going or whatever. But it does exist, and that matters to me. You're shaking your head.
That's my pet question for later.
Oh,
At a
okay.
good time.
We are gonna take, I didn't even look at, Lex, how we doing on time?
Time.
Time?
Yeah.
Okay. Lex, give me the nod, so we're gonna open up for questions. If somebody needs, I don't know if we have another mic, we have one, I need a microphone. What? Okay, do you wanna tell us who you are, or do you wanna
I'll
say,
say who I
even
am.
though your name is on your, okay.
I'm thrilled to be here. I heard your story. I actually bought your book when I started my business
Oh.
in 2020.
Makes me so happy.
Yeah, I actually was speaking with this beautiful woman next to me and sharing my story, and it opened to her page with your name on it, because this is my journey of my business.
Wow.
And she'll vouch for it.
Wow.
I didn't make it up.
That's kind of huge.
Yeah, and that's the story of my product. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, which I didn't hear you talk about, is patent.
Yeah.
So I am in the process of getting a patent. You can't, okay. So I'm in the process of getting a patent. It's a really arduous process. And I just want to get your opinion on the patent process. I do feel that the USPTO is not very supportive of entrepreneurs, and I also feel they're not supportive of sustainability type products. So it's kind of an additional hurdle that I'm finding I have to articulate with them, and they're still not getting it. So it just kind of, if you wouldn't mind talking about that a little bit.
I don't think I have deep expertise there, especially when you're talking about something that might be more of a cutting edge concern in the USPTO. But what I really could say is encouraging you to go slog through, because you're creating enterprise value, you're creating defensibility. You know why you're doing it, but just to reinforce it when you're feeling kind of beaten up about it is, it's not just defensibility against competitors, which it is, but it's also, you're creating enterprise value. That's my investor hat talking, your person talking now. So that if you ever did want to merge with them or sell or whatever, it's the first thing investors are going to ask, or inquiring companies are going to ask. You know that, I'm sure, but I'm trying to be a little rah-rah, but I don't have any real insight. I would try and divert you to a design patent or something like a lesser like not recognize the functional side of what you're doing?
I think they're not recognizing the functional side. And I also feel that my product is really sustainable. And that is really not even on the table. They're not even seeing it that way. I'm competing against products that are made in China and they're made out of PVC, which is a known carcinogen. So I'm trying to put a product to market that kind of is a better product. It's sustainable, it's healthier, and they're just not in that space.
Got it.
You know,
I'm kind of not surprised that it's
Yeah.
a whole different area lane to be in.
right. I mean, I don't think they'll ever change their viewpoint in my lifetime, to be honest, because they're very old-fashioned, you know, and they support the pharmaceutical companies, they support, you know, high tech, you know, that's kind of where the money is.
Right.
Which is kind of sad. But I didn't introduce myself again, I'm sorry, I'm Donna Lee and my company is R-YOLO. And I am marketing it, but this is one of my big hurdles that I'm trying to overcome right now is the patent piece.
I'm sorry, I don't have any brilliant.
Okay, I'm just curious. And with the Grommet, did you get products that were patented or?
Yes, it was a mix. They
A
were
mix,
always,
okay.
but you know, my general hope was that they would have the opportunity. Now the parts can be patented.
Right,
so,
I
you
understand.
know, you don't go down that path, it's gonna just cost you money for nothing.
Yeah, I understand. Okay,
Somebody in the back
thank you.
have a question? Anybody? I thought I saw somebody raise one. Sarah?
Thanks. Hi, big fan of the Grommet.
No, thank you.
Worked with you on a couple of products and was it was a great loss when Grommet went away, and the company that you referred to that has taken the Grommet name is not really a good alternative in my experiences. So I'm wondering, as you were speaking about monopolies earlier, what alternatives to the Grommet exist today that are a similar platform?
There isn't one. I think the closest would be Fair, you know, the wholesale platform, but it's and I haven't tracked it super closely, but it seems to be a very narrow, much narrower platform, you know, in terms of the products they're looking for, like home decor and those things. Not at all what we did, so it's not, we didn't do much of that, so. No, sadly, alas, I don't know of an alternative. It was, I mean, to be fair, it was a really hard business to build. This took us like the, you know, ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It took every cell of my body and my co-founders for 12 years, you know, and it was financially very difficult for us to survive. We almost died 3 times. It took a level of caring, I don't know a better word to say, about the companies we were working with, the products, and building trust that just meant, like, we would cancel once this didn't happen often, but we canceled a launch the night before because we found negative reviews in Holland about a European product, you know, we had to kind of dig. The night before, but, you know, it's a really hard thing to do when you got a media thing happening the next day. I don't know, that level of caring and concern, I think, I would see competitors usually start in another country and try to do what we did correctly in their country, which is a smart thing to do, right? It's a classic entrepreneurial move. They would never last. And I think it was like that. I mean, I don't want to make it personal, but Joey and I were just so fierce about this business and, you know, doing the right thing and putting in the extra time. And our team was like that too. We saw it, you know, that a mission-driven business attracts really interesting, great people, like, you know, ours did at least. But I haven't seen, I mean, I wish I had an answer. I really don't have an answer.
It's hard. People want easy nowadays.
I'd want easier. I mean, I couldn't do it again, what we did. I really, if I knew what I knew now, I couldn't have signed up for it. I'm very pleased with what we accomplished and the impact we had, and I'm proud of the products we helped succeed and the people we helped develop. All that, pretty good. hard.
A lot of jobs that were created out of them.
Yeah, hundreds.
Kept companies going, they kept,
Yeah.
products that launched and they employed people. So it did spider up.
Thousands, really. Internally hundreds, externally thousands.
Yeah, many, many thousands, tens of thousands, because that's the way it was.
Hi. I got a pretty specific question about fundraising because
What's your name?
yeah, my name's Christian,
Okay.
and we just started a company about 6 months ago that helps inventors and entrepreneurs with engineering and design. So we're helping a lot of inventors and early stage startups. And the question is for one of these startups that we're helping. They're a group of 3 female co-founders and they're making a new device to detect mold. It's a mold detection sensor. And they're developing this new technology from scratch. There's no technology like this out there and they're looking for fundraising because it's a little bit unknown. It's going to take a lot of time, development, and engineering.
Yeah.
So you've worked with a lot of consumer products, now you're in venture capital. I heard from another venture capital investor a few weeks ago that most venture capitalists don't like to invest in consumer products, especially in like the B2C space. I think they're trying to spin it more like a B2B product. What do you think is a good route for them to raise funding? Because they might need somewhere from $50,000 up to $350,000 to further develop the technology and the sensor.
That is really angel territory. Somebody say, I've never heard this before, HNIs, high net worth individuals. You knew that? I've never heard that until today. That is angel territory for sure. There are funds that are female focused and I list them in the book and I have an online, the same list is on my website for the book. You can find the same list. So, but they are more classy VCs. It's not an automatic easy fit. The VC told you that was telling you the truth, that I would completely look at angel investors, and ultimately there could be a strategic investor where a business that's related to this business and would understand it could be a really good partner because they have to get beyond the technology to create a product and distribute it. So they're truly doing something breakthrough. I like a strategic investment for this kind of company, or licensing. If you have somebody in the room, there's lots of, you just license your product. There's another great route where you take it only so far, but then partner.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Question over here. Question here.
Hi, my name is Ivina. I have like a 2-part question, if it's okay. I'm really into semantics and how people define things, so I'm curious to hear how you're defining innovation, because I'm looking at the title, and it's like the role of innovation in product development. So curious to hear how you define innovation, and then just over your lifespan, you've had lots of leadership roles, so biggest lessons learned around leadership that have translated across your various roles?
I guess, I haven't been asked this, the innovation question, but I don't know that I have a very erudite or intellectual answer. It's just solving a problem in a new way, I guess is probably the most basic way I define it. That's not aspirational, but that's how I see it. In terms of leadership, I think I've had this funny phenomenon in my career where my personal life paralleled what I had to do at work every day. So when I had really little kids, I worked in a shoe company that made kids shoes for little kids. And then I graduated to a toy company. And then I graduated ultimately to a social network where my kids were more on that cutting edge than any of my friends were. So I always was drawing from my personal life. And then I got to Grommet and I was employing people who were just a little bit older than my kids, and ultimately some who were this, over the course of time, the same age as my kids. And so I always, as a leader, started with like, how would I want my kids to be treated in a company? That was my guiding North Star. Like, I would want somebody to care that it was their birthday and they showed up to work and somebody was going to say happy birthday. I would want somebody to care that they were developing their skills and being challenged and recognized. And I had a bias that I wanted people to feel like 40%, 50% comfortable and 50% really on an edge. I would want that for my kids. I don't want them too comfortable and I don't want them scared out of their minds. So how do we have that balance in the job? I would want somebody to give them weekly feedback. I want a company that fosters social relationships between employees. We're really good at that, so that somebody moves from Kansas, they're not alone. They have friends working in this company. And so I was always just, not everybody was my kid's age, but I felt that way about any age. Like most of the things I said, except for maybe meeting friends, anybody would want, right? So that's how, that was so helpful to me. And I'd ask them, like, what's working once they were in the workforce and their friends for innovative ideas. Like I stole one of my sons worked at HubSpot, a software company, and they had a great sabbatical program. So, you know, I just worked my way to the president of HubSpot and tell me how it works. Because he's all excited that you have this. You know, he's joining the company, it's 5 years away, and he's all excited. How does it work? And I just totally copied it. You know, so they were my focus group, pretty much.
Good. Last question. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Jen Ginty, and my product is My Wee Monster. And I know you were in the toy industry, and you were speaking about Amazon bakes and the problems with that. And I was wondering, the toy industry I know is very difficult, where people will copy, like companies will copy before things even get out. So when you look at somebody to invest in, is that something that you look at and is a problem?
The defensibility, is that what you mean?
Yes, yeah. I can't get a patent because there was a rip-apart lawyer in the 80s. So I do all the trademarks, I've done all that.
Yeah.
But how else can I defend myself in that way?
You're right, that's a hard product to defend. You're right about the toy industry, and it's a long time since I was in it, but there are a couple structural things. I remember, first of all, when I worked at Playskool, like any packages that came in the door, we weren't allowed to open. Because we might trip on something we were developing, get into, you know, that surprised me. Now they have forms for bringing in ideas more formally. We didn't have that then, but it surprised me. We didn't want no ideas, please, you know, like keep them out of here. But it's also really it's kind of a distribution chokehold. There are these not all industries have this. Toys have very strong distributor companies that, you know, you're in or you're out if you can get your product in the hands of one of those distributors. So that's another reason why it's, you know, maybe a little tougher to break into. In terms of defensibility, I think you're doing what you can do in terms of trade dress branding, right? And then it becomes speed. Like, you know, toys are often about like the person who, whether, you know, just pick the like obvious ones like babies or fidget spinners, the ones that like everybody knows. It usually was just speed, right? They had a vision. They were good operators, but they were fastest to get ahead of everybody. And then they knew that they'd only have a certain amount of time. You know, that's a tough business that way.
Thank you.
Jules, you think that companies now are more opening the doors and having open innovation
Yes.
programs? Because now
Yes.
they
So
need,
different.
they need it. So they realize there might be a lot of smart people out there with things.
Yeah.
So now it's a little easier, that they're more receptive to.
I would say totally different world, and that's retailers too. It's not just manufacturers and brands. That I think, you know, they're influenced by the openness of everything. It's essentially the internet, right? That they kind of got exposed to what people are able to create without the classic, you know, expensive resources that are in-house in the company. Kind of like what I said at the beginning, these technologies are available to the ordinary person. And some of the channels for marketing, development, designing, research are available to the average person. They can create a credible product. This is not an amateur hour anymore. It did used to be, not so much amateur hour, but the person who created a product had to be a hero, like an impossible, mythic person 40, 50 years ago. Now you can be like the smart person who taps these resources. It's different.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you.